Welcome to Mad About Money. I'm Maddy Alexander-Grout, and this is the podcast where we talk to interesting people all about their interesting money stories. I'm here with Ruth Mary Chipperfield from Ruth Mary Jewellery. She is a goldsmith and a jewellery designer, and she's going to share her money story with us today. Ruth, lovely to meet you. How are you doing?
I am doing very well, thank you. I have my coffee.
Excellent. It's exactly what we need. I wish I had coffee actually. I'm currently on a caffeine-free diet, which is horrible because I'm waking up every single morning with my crappy autoimmune disease. But it doesn't work very well with ADHD medication. So
Interesting.
it gives me
That's
really bad
interesting because I'm
headaches.
on some ADHD medication, but for narcolepsy.
Ooh, what one are you on?
So I'm on modafinil. I don't think that's usually used for ADHD, actually. It's a stimulant. And I'm on dexamphetamine.
Are you? Interesting. But caffeine doesn't have a bad effect on you.
No, I guess I'm using it for different reasons. Even though I
I
think there
get,
is a lot
yeah.
of crossover with ADHD and narcolepsy, I don't think I have ADHD. To be honest, I don't really mind whether I do or I don't, but I'm going to borrow some strategies where I can.
Absolutely. Yeah, why not? Um, Interesting. So we'll talk a bit about the narcolepsy in a minute because I don't know very much about it as a condition at all. And I think our audience would be really interested to know about it. Tell me a little bit about you and what you do, first of all.
So I am as you mentioned, a jewelry designer and a goldsmith, and essentially a lot of my work is bespoke. I design for people, often people that don't really quite know what they want, which I just love the challenge of asking them loads of questions that sometimes don't seem particularly related to each other, and then I work out what design will be perfect for them. So it means that people want to commission something and they've got a bit of a blank canvas syndrome. We can have a conversation, and then they're like, "Oh, that's possible. I didn't know who could do that." And a big part of my work is remodeling heirlooms because so many people have something in their drawer, belong to their granny. Like my son yesterday, he was just twirling my wedding ring round or my engagement ring round my finger, and it's those kind of memories that then people have, and then their loved one passes on, and then the ring sits in a box because it's not really their style, and that's when I'll turn it into something that is their style, as well as like repairing stuff that other goldsmiths have been like, it's not worth repairing. And I'm like, yes, it is, because it
Yeah.
reminds you of your mum and she's very special, and therefore the ring is very special. So I will bend over backwards, even if it's really difficult to repair.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And do you do like resizing and stuff as well?
Yeah, I do that kind of thing as well. I think doing some of the what people would call like bread and butter jewelry, which is quite rare for designers to do that. But for me, it means I've just got a steady stream of people coming to my studio when I'm working on my
Yeah.
projects that I could just chat to. And otherwise I get
Nice.
lonely, and I externally process. So then I can just talk. Well, I try not to talk at them, but if they ask me what projects I'm up to, then I'm like, oh, I've got this, and I'll show you that. And
Oh,
yeah.
amazing. I've got this ring actually that my mother-in-law left me.
Oh, pretty.
And
Is that
it's amethyst. And
Oh,
it's
okay. I couldn't see
really,
from the video. I would
yeah,
have
it's kind
guessed
of,
garnets, but I can see
yeah,
the
it's kind
tones
of,
coming through.
and it's lovely. It's quite big. I've been wearing it for a year now, and when I first looked at it, I was like, oh my God, that's massive. I can't wear it. But it now feels like part of my hand. So
Yeah.
I like it. I have got a lovely Pandora ring that my mum got me for Christmas, which is the wrong size. Every time I go to Pandora, there's a queue that's like a mile long. So I might just send that to you to
Uh,
get it redone. I'm like, I can't be
yeah, you're
bothered.
probably taking better off taking that one back there. But if you're ever not sure on ring sizes, you can always just get one of those rubber spiral things off Amazon just to kind of figure
It's too
out.
small, annoyingly. So
Oh,
I
okay,
do
yeah, then
probably just need to take it back. But it's just every time I
yeah.
go, I keep it in my coat pocket and I go into town and I'm like, I look at the queue and I'm like, ADHDers don't queue. I'm like, I would rather like, I know it's annoying. But I'd rather just keep the ring and maybe I might put it on my necklace actually. Maybe that's a
You
good
could do
idea.
that. Or now that Valentine's Day and Mother's Day are out the way, it might be better.
It might be better actually. Yeah, I think it was. I kept going around Christmas time, and I was like, no, can't, no,
Yeah.
not for me. But that's really interesting. What's the most interesting piece you've ever done?
Oh gosh, I'd have to think there actually. I think every piece is so different. I'm going to tell you about one piece that sort of aesthetically it's not my personal style at all, and it was a massive challenge. But it was a client who actually I'd come across through Facebook Marketplace, because I sell all sorts of like randomy stuff on there, which I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll get onto at another point because it's very money related. But anyway, I'd been selling her various costume brooches just because that's what she collects. But then we'd sort of got chatting, and I'd always contact her if I had something that I thought that she might like. And she really wanted a birthstone angel pendant, like a big gold pendant, solid gold. And her birthstones being June, I think it was June, I always have to look it up. Then there are three, it's moonstone, Alexandrite, and pearl. And she wanted all three incorporated, and I thought these are really, really different stones.
Yeah.
And Alexandrite is a colour change variety of chrysoberyl, and then you've got pearls. People are usually familiar with pearls, and moonstones, they've got a bit of a sheen when you sort of move the stone around in the light. And I just thought, gosh, how am I going to do this? And it was almost like I could have picked an easy route of sort of, she showed me a pendant which she liked the style that she already had. I could have sort of more or less taken that design and made it bigger and added gems, but it just didn't feel right because it was like
Yeah.
really, really special. She'd never commissioned a piece of jewelry for her. It being big and solid gold, it wasn't cheap. And I mean, that's where, in a way, to be honest, my faith helps me. I was just like, I need compassion and just joy for this person, because if I don't feel like really connected
Yeah.
to the person, it's hard to design something that's like really perfect for them, because it's not about me. Like, I need to leave my taste at the door. I mean, obviously I'm thrilled when it's something that's really to my taste that I
Yeah.
get to design as my own sort of style. But and actually I was so chuffed with the result. I designed it so that it was the angel pendant and then had a tiny Alexandrite in the middle, because any bigger they're really, really expensive. Unless you've got a synthetic one, which is actually a sapphire, strictly speaking, but that's another story. And then I did tiny cultured seed pearls along the wings, and the moonstone as the face of
Wow.
the angel. And it was one of those where it was so not my aesthetic style, but I was so chuffed because it really represented her, who she is. And yeah, it was one just that I was really, really chuffed with. On the flip side, though, ones where I'm like, oh, I would have liked to have kept that. I wish I could. One day I'll be able to
Yeah.
afford to make things like that for myself that I make for my
Yeah.
customers.
So something that I just thought of is people using like gems and stones and crystals, etc., for things like manifesting. Do you ever get people who are like wanting commissions for things that mean something to them because of the crystals that they have?
I'm just trying to think. Sometimes it's not, strangely, it's not something that I actually get that much of. I think because sort of it's often something where it's mainly the stone. They'll go to a crystal shop or something and pick that out.
Mm,
Um, and then that will go on some sort of a simple pendant or something like that.
mm,
So often price point wise, then it's sort of a different market. That said,
yeah.
it does happen. And I did just have a client called Joanna. She did a brilliant video when she received the necklace, and basically she herself, usually then I'm doing most of the design, but this, I mean, pretty much she designed it herself.
Oh
And it
wow.
was sort of a graphic 5 circles that sort of represent the energy in different directions and
Oh.
added up to the number 23, and it was all geometric. And there was a lot of playing around in terms of getting the exact dimensions to the sub-millimeter right for it to work, but
Yeah.
that was then in gold, and that was laser cut, just
Wow.
because doing that by hand then to get it all so precise. I mean, I did do some handwork afterwards to kind of get the definition and that, but yeah, but that was like a really meaningful one to her in terms of the symbol. And we did it on a chain so that it hangs down as a similar length to where she's got a tattoo of that same symbol.
Ah.
Um, so yeah, so that was really cool. It didn't involve a crystal, but the meaning did, and I've
Still
explained
kind of
it.
the
She
spiritual.
explained it so eloquently.
Oh, amazing. I bet that's really fun.
It is,
Um,
it is.
no, I like that. So I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everybody that comes on this podcast. What is your money story?
I'd say my money story is quite complex in a way. I mean, compared to some of I mean, you probably disagree because you obviously are involved in this topic a lot more. I'd say sort of growing up, my parents were very good at teaching me about money.
Oh, good.
Money was never a taboo in terms of talking about it. I got my pocket money. I learned how to budget from a really early age. I remember being at sort of GCSE business studies and someone asking, like, what's inflation? What are interest rates? And I was like, what? How do you not know? And because it was just always talked about in the house. My dad's got his own business. He's self-employed. He's autistic. So whilst he, in some ways, he could have opened a big translating agency, that would have never been him. And for him, always worked really well, just working on his own,
Yeah.
very good at what he does. But as a result, then sort of, I think money was just always talked about. It was also openly stressed about when sort of things weren't going to plan or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and my parents, they're really generous people. They barely spend any money on themselves. But they are really generous when there's someone who's significantly in need. And sort of in some ways, I kind of think that is amazing. And I do really see that as a brilliant thing. But then at the same time, sometimes I think sort of in me, it's sort of got to this thing almost like, oh, if I've got money, then I need to either give it away or almost like subconsciously then I'll end up wanting to spend it so that I don't have anything anymore. So then that sort of today causes cash flow issues because I'll get some good commissions in and then I'm like, oh, shiny tools or oh, more gemstones that I don't need and things like that. But in between that, what I've missed out is sort of a big chunk of my life where so I was at university. I got married super young. So I've been married 14 and a half years now. I'm
Wow.
34. So yeah, so I got married in my first year of uni after I'd just turned 20. I had a year out analysing wastewater.
Oh, okay.
Was very brown. And so yeah, so and at the time sort of planning the wedding, I was very good at sort of budgeting, had the spreadsheet and everything. I'd never even been to a wedding when I was planning one, so
Wow.
but
How can
pretty
you
much.
how can you not have been to a wedding till you're 20?
Actually, I did
That's
in the
crazy.
summer. We got married at the Christmas, and we did actually go
Yeah.
to one. I'd sort of been to the odd one as a kid, but just
Yeah.
not really.
You don't
Because
notice as
usually your
much, do you?
friendship circle is such that you'll sort of have a few, and yeah, whereas I didn't. After I got married, then went to loads, but at the time I'd literally been to one wedding. So I was doing it all, and I mean, I still remember that we managed to do the whole thing for 70 guests at the meal, 150 guests in the evening, and the honeymoon, and my dress for £7,000. I mean, this was
That's amazing.
2009, but sort of I literally costed everything out, and that was including honeymoon spending money, that was
Wow.
everything. And so yeah, so I guess, I mean, for me it's kind of quite nice reminding myself like, oh yeah, I can do this. But then what happened next, I was at uni and then I got diagnosed with narcolepsy, and then it was in my
How did that happen? Like, what was the did you just start falling asleep?
I'd always been super tired, but I just thought it was normal that when you sit still, it's really hard to stay awake because I didn't know any different. So it'd just been gradually getting worse over time. And I'd sort of fallen asleep in a couple of mock exams in sixth form. And
I think they're
it was sort
boring,
of,
right?
well, yeah, exactly. But it was that kind of thing. And I always really struggled to stay awake. And I think, I mean, I grew up in Germany, and then when I moved to England, so I did part of my secondary school in England, and I was at a grammar school in Germany, and you expected to behave a little bit more. And then I moved to a comprehensive school in England, and I mean, there was just so much messing about going on. It was kind of easier to stay awake and sort of, yeah. So it wasn't until I got to uni I was really struggling, because the year before uni I was working in a lab, so I was on my feet all the time. So again, that was better for me. But then it got to the point where I'd be sat still and 30 seconds I'd be asleep, and my friend would be jabbing me in the side trying to wake me up like 3 times a
Wow.
minute, and I'd literally be trying to write the same word, I'd fall asleep mid-word writing it, cross it out, try and write it. And so you could see in my notes how, yeah, so eventually got diagnosed. My parents paid privately. I mean, I had to sort of Google symptoms because the doctor wouldn't believe me and all that jazz. But anyway, so eventually got diagnosed, got some medication. So that was modafinil and then the dexamphetamine. So that worked for a while, but then I got what's called cataplexy. So it's basically a muscle paralysis. So I'd constantly just be collapsing all over the place. So come third year, it got to the point I was basically sleeping 18 hours in 24 and collapsing 30 plus times a day. Like I'd be
Oh,
conscious, but I just
wow.
wouldn't be able to move. So obviously being at uni became unsustainable. I couldn't really go out on my own anymore. My husband basically became my full-time carer. So then what happened next was 3 years of my life where he was my full-time carer and we pretty much had no income. We managed to sort of get a bit of like housing benefit, council tax benefit. Didn't get any disability or carers allowance though. So essentially, I mean, I think there were some other things that we managed to get, but it was sort of, I've no idea what we lived on. I mean, we drained the sort of savings that we had that was basically, because when we moved to England, my sister couldn't, and when my sister went to uni, she couldn't get a student loan because we hadn't been in the UK long enough, so they funded her. It was obviously a lot cheaper back then. And so they sort of gave me the equivalent. I spent a little bit, some of it on the wedding and then had some left. And I mean, that just basically went, I would have had a nice deposit for a house otherwise, but obviously that all got spent. Eventually I got funding for medication, which caused other issues just in terms of like, I mean, your sleep and your mental health are highly connected, it turns out.
Yeah.
So that kind of then had a knock-on effect in terms of PTSD and sort of complex PTSD, I should say, and various other things. So eventually, after 3 years, I sort of managed to go back to uni, just about got myself together and sort of, and I mean, but then at the same time, the things that, like, just amazing things that happened. So for example, I just got back to uni, made a few new friends, sort of, because I was going back into third year, people knew each other, and I just went up to these girls that seemed nice, were like, I'm new, can I have lunch with you guys?
Oh,
It was so nice.
you.
And I remember sort of, I'd basically I had no, like, zero money in my account, and my calculator broke. I needed a calculator for the course, so I just thought, well, I'm gonna have to just buy one. I'll go overdrawn, I'll get charged for going overdrawn, but I'm just gonna have to do it and then figure it all out later. So I went, bought a calculator, then got distracted talking to my new friends and so I didn't open the packet, and then one of them said, oh, I found a calculator under my bed, do you want it? I don't need it. And it was amazing because that calculator saved me 60 odd quid.
Yeah,
Because I was
60
able
quid
to,
for a calculator.
well,
Christ.
no, because I would have gone overdrawn. So I
Yeah,
was able to take the other one
makes sense.
back, which was, I don't know, a tenner or something, and then 50 quid going overdrawn. And it was just at the right time. So those kind of little things are just amazing. So yeah, other things, like, I think another time I'd sort of gone overdrawn, and it was more just because I hadn't moved money around properly. And a friend of mine that I knew from church at the time, she was like, oh, God told me to give you 50 quid. And that was like the withdrawal. Like, and I was like, so basically, even when I'm an absolute idiot, then I'm okay. Like, sort of, so that was
Oh,
kind of cool. But yeah, so I managed to finish my chemistry degree, but in between that, I sort of started, I mean, I'd always been creative. I'd made stuff, I'd been making jewelry, kind of gradually up my skills a bit, and people started buying it. So post uni, then my health wasn't good enough to do any kind of normal job or anything like that.
what was your degree?
Chemistry.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So and I think, so by that point I knew I wanted to set up my own business. I mean, partly one of the reasons why my health wasn't great was because I didn't know I had PTSD, which is kind of a big deal when you're trying to learn and function. So anyway, that was, so I finished that off. Considering the circumstances, then it worked out pretty well, really. It didn't feel like it at the time, but it did. And then sort of began my business from there, sort of basically organically growing from, I didn't have anything in the bank at the time to kind of put into the business. So it was literally bit by bit. Thankfully, sort of cost, I guess cost of living was cheaper back then. So my husband's salary we could just about live on. And then it's sort of been gradual from there. And then there've been a lot of things that I've done to kind of improve my health, which has then in turn helped my business. And so it's not one of those stories, sort of, you read them where someone just started something and it just took off, which
Yeah.
normally when you start to dig in, that's not true anyway. That's not my story at all. It's been very kind of years of very, very slow growth, but now I'm really gaining momentum. I've found my niche around sort of my bespoke work. I'm designing a birthstone collection at the moment, which I've been talking about for ages, but I'm actually doing it right now. So,
Oh,
so that'll be
amazing.
nice. So yeah, I guess that's a bit of a history of my money story. I'm sure
Yeah.
I've left loads of things out.
So, I mean, I love it. Something you said there just really kind of resonated with me. It's the fact that it's not an overnight success. And I think
Yeah,
people who have got neurodivergent conditions or invisible illnesses, when they're running a business, we learn in different ways because we
yeah,
have to. We have to prioritize our workload in different ways because we have to. We have to do things in a very different way. So learning from like the big gurus who like are really massive and really great, yes, not saying that what they teach isn't right because it is, but it's not suited to people who have got autoimmune diseases or
yeah.
people who have got, disabilities or neurodivergent conditions. And this is exactly why I set up my new membership. So I've just started a visibility membership
Oh,
for
nice.
people who have got invisible illnesses and neurodivergent conditions, called Invisible to Influential. And it's basically like I give you a tip every single day on how to get more visible in your business. We also do like co-working. We've got networking, which is camera on or camera off, whichever you feel more comfortable with. And it's all about helping people to understand that prioritizing themselves is often better than prioritizing their business because we need to do
Yeah.
things differently. So that really resonated with me. I think it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where often you can end up in a bit of a catch-22 situation with that sort of thing. I mean, when I came out of uni and I was trying to work on my business and just I wasn't really functioning. My sister said, like, look, if you want some sort of therapy, I'll pay for it. And I literally bit her
Mm.
hand off over the phone. Um, and I'd actually met someone a year before through Free Cycle. I was getting rid of a guillotine, which I'd actually incidentally nearly cut my finger off with, but that's another.
Ah!
But I did warn her that it didn't have a safety guard and she needed to be careful. Um, but anyway, she turned out to be a psychotherapist, so I went to her and it was amazing. And sort of that was really, really helpful. I mean, I can't remember how much my sister spent. It was probably a good couple of grand, something like that. And then more recently, it's sort of taken a while to kind of save up, but also prioritize me in terms of paying for a professional nutritionist with
Mm.
what I'm doing now. So I'm on a ketogenic diet, which to be honest, it sucks, but pick your hard. I'd rather
Yeah.
kind of feel a bit more healthy most of the time than be able to eat sweets and carbs. And actually eating out isn't as hard as I thought it would be. So
What
yeah,
kind of things can you have?
pardon?
What kind of things can you have?
So I'm eating a lot of meat. I live next door to a butcher, which is kind of handy.
Helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can put an order in. I need to put one today actually, and then he drops it round after work because obviously he lives next door.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's good. Sort of eggs, tofu, have a lot of smoked salmon, and then have to
Mm.
make sure that I have loads of greens and veggies. So I don't have carbohydrates like potatoes or sort of anything that's a carbohydrate. And it's
Mm.
funny how much you realize how much of stuff like that is hidden. Like sort of you test basically wee on a stick and then you can test the level of ketones in your urine. And it's amazing how much stuff like mayonnaise has got added sugar and all of these things. And it can be quite frustrating where you kind of think I'm doing all the work, but it's still not quite happening. And one of my nighttime medications, it's got dried maize starch in. So I'm trying to
Oh,
work out if
wow.
that's actually having an impact. I know, and it's just a cheap old filler ingredient, right? And my daytime modafinil, that's got lactose in, which, I mean,
Oh.
my chemistry knowledge comes in useful. I know that's a sugar.
Now
Um,
I'm like, let's look at these ingredients because I'm very interested to know if what I'm taking has anything that I'm not supposed to be taking in it.
well, I mean, if you're on dexamphetamine, then that might, because it's dexamphetamine sulfate.
I mean, this is a pamphlet and a half. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
seriously,
But
it's
the thing is, I mean,
massive.
the doctors aren't trained for all those kind of doctors aren't really trained on nutrition anyway.
Look how big this is.
Well, yeah, it's massive, isn't it? And a lot of it doesn't apply. And what it won't say is how the so-called side effects link together and things like that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I was told by my nutritionist that some of my medication, and I can't even remember which ones, meant that there were certain food supplements, like vitamin B, I think was one of them. I'm taking various, so I can't remember which was which. Is one that I should automatically be taking if on that medication, just because of the way it works. And I'll try not to geek out too much on the chemistry because I'll go on huge tangents. But
No, I love that. I didn't even think that there would be stuff in there that I might be allergic to. So,
well, it's not necessarily always being allergic. It's just that
or
if,
just
for example, it's using similar receptors to certain vitamins and minerals and that kind of thing, then that affects how those vitamins and minerals are taken
are
up by the
absorbed and stuff.
body.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing that's more the case than it means you're necessarily allergic. I mean, obviously, if you are allergic, that's a different story, but yeah.
I love the fact that I have not actually looked properly at the side effects of these. It's like, oh, rare, sudden death, great.
Yeah, I mean, you get sort of, I think often the side effects you have to kind of take with a bit of a pinch of salt. It's
That is a big pamphlet though. I mean, like, I'm gonna have a look at that in a bit more detail later on because it is huge. Maybe I should have looked at that before, but I'm gonna go with like ADHD, don't like reading stuff, don't want to.
oh yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
Oh, it's really strange, but no. Well, thank you for sharing your story because I think that's like, I mean, I didn't really know very much about narcolepsy and how it kind of you just kind of see it as people just falling asleep in the middle of things, but
Well,
not
that's the
like
thing, and I mean,
the gradual.
there are comedy moments of it. I mean, one time then I collapsed with what's called a cataplexy attack while I was at uni, and um, basically, so I just couldn't move. It was still early on, so I was still trying to figure out like
Mm,
what can I feel, hear, see, like whatever. Anyway, kind of went on for some time. I was feeling really rough. At a string of 4 back-to-back lectures where I'd not had a break and I could barely last any time awake anyway. So I collapsed. And then so I could hear everything going on, and then they called the ambulance. Ambulance didn't know what narcolepsy was. We're looking it up on
oh,
Wikipedia on their phones, and then I mean, it's sort of comedy now, but and then they realised that I had a bit of a rash. I mean, it's basically a heat rash. My body keeping my torso warm, vital organs. I mean, that's my own
yeah,
personal explanation. This isn't any sort of scientific review,
yeah.
but that's kind of what seems to sort of happen. My limbs will maybe go a bit colder, and so then they're like, oh, there's a rash, better off strip her naked just to make sure that there's nothing. So I'm there, like I know everything that's going on, and they're stripping me. I mean, thankfully my body confidence was fine, so
Yeah.
whatever. But and then there was a guy sort of like joking, like, oh, do you want any help with that, ladies? And oh, maybe she's
Oh, what?
allergic to the blanket. And I mean, this is before sort of the whole thing around Me Too. I mean, this would have been
Yeah.
around 20, I want to say 2011, that kind of time. So I think now I would have not got away with it. At the
No
time, I was like, I
way.
just couldn't be bothered to make a fuss. I wanted to sort of say, like, look, can you just have a word with him? I know it was in jest and he didn't mean harm, but it's inappropriate. Can you not do it again? But then they were like, oh, you can raise a complaint. I'm like, I can't be asked with that. I just want him to not do it again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that's horrible, isn't it? Really horrible. Oh, I mean, there are so many things that having an invisible illness kind of
yeah.
bring to us, and like I mean, the cost of that,
Yeah, the
because
cost
you're
is high. I mean, I spend a lot of money on supplements.
yes, supplements, supermarkets, like
Yeah, I mean, in
actually
terms
all
of
of
how much extra I spend on food and nutritional supplements a month, it's at least £200, if not 300.
where
Um,
do you shop?
so I shop at Sainsbury's. I've tried other ones, but to be honest, it's you need. I find that it's important to have the quality of ingredients and not just loads of
Yes.
filler ingredients, of sort of pseudo food affection. I mean, pseudo food tastes delicious at times, but yeah. So I tend to shop there, and then I get some meats there, and then some meat from our butcher neighbour. So there's that, but then there's also all
Yeah.
the supplements from
Yeah.
probiotics, omega-3,
Can you get those at Sainsbury's
magnesium.
as well?
Yeah, omega-3s. I mean, with that, then that's again, since I've been seeing this nutritionist, I've taken some in the past because years ago when I was really poorly, and sort of I got my new medication, developed PTSD, and I lost about a third of my body weight in 4 months. So people didn't recognize me on the street. I got jaundice and all that. And so just like the physical effects of the side effects of kind of psychological stuff going on, all side effects,
Yeah.
of course, not like a fundamental way the drug works, but anyway, that's another matter. But so I saw an eye doctor and he said, I'll take omega-3 supplements because my eyes were so dry, they were just getting infected and stuff. So I'd then just been getting the cheapo stuff.
Yeah.
But one, the cheapo stuff can end up having trace amounts of mercury in, which you don't really want, and it's not necessarily
No.
tested for. So I'm told. I can't give you the references and the proof of it. But what I mean, now I've been on this new omega-3 for about 2-3 months. I've always had dry eyes, and I
Mm.
went to the optician the other day, and this is the first time in my life that they've told me there's no evidence of dry eye whatsoever.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
I mean, that's
cool.
just one thing. But I also found after pregnancy, my thumbs were hurting. There's sort of a bit of a history of arthritis in the family. So I got a bit freaked out because for my job, I need my thumbs.
You
Like,
do, yes.
oh gosh. So that sorted that out as well. But I think the thing is with health, and this is a frustration of mine, is that I always feel like there's more I could spend on.
Mm.
Like I feel I'd benefit from a good sports massage right now, or maybe seeing a chiropodist, or
Yeah.
all those things. And it's sort of, yeah, you can't do all of it. Well, I can't anyway.
Prioritization, and this is one thing that I will always say to people, make sure that you have self-care. Self-care, that was kind of like a self-care and healthcare in between.
Yeah,
Self-care and health in your budget,
yeah,
because it's
definitely.
important, it's you.
Yeah,
So in my budget, I have a massage every single month because that helps with my mental health. I've got
yeah.
all my supplements because I take stuff like apple cider vinegar gummies. I've got lion's mane,
Oh,
which
I
is
have that as well.
like
It's
I
good,
love
that
I
stuff.
love lion's mane. It's brilliant. And I've also got stuff like shilajit and like all sorts of stuff. Um, but
That sounds like a
those
joke of a name. I mean,
it does, doesn't it? It does. It helps with
it's
loads of
like
things.
there's
It's
a gemstone mineral called Coming Tonight.
amazing.
I mean, who
Love it.
named that?
I don't know. But yeah, so always have a budget for self-care and healthcare. But also as well, you can buy discounted vouchers in the Mad About Money app for places like Sainsbury's. So
Ah,
basically, how it works is you work out how much you spend at Sainsbury's every month. You buy that amount in vouchers, but it doesn't cost you the same amount as it would in cash. So
oh,
you save a
interesting.
bit of money there. And
Yeah,
it also helps you to ring fence your budget. So
yeah.
it's completely free to register. All you need to do is just download the
Hmm.
Mad About Money app, go to the discount club, and register on our portal, and then you can buy vouchers for wherever and where. Like,
Oh,
there's
that's
there's also
brilliant.
stuff
I'll have
like
to have a look at that.
yeah, we've also got stuff like 24/7 GP as well. Annoyingly, I'd love Holland and Barrett to be on there, but I don't think it is. But there
Yeah.
must be somewhere on there that we've got that you can get your supplements from. I mean, if you
Yeah,
can
I
get
mean,
them from
sort of,
Sainsbury's,
I wouldn't worry too much about sort of Holland and Mara. I mean, they're sort of the ones that, if it's something like vitamin D, which is just ascorbic acid, just basically like
just get it
sherbet,
from the
then,
supermarket. Yeah.
well, yeah, or you can get it from Holland and Barrett. Whereas when it's more specialist things, then often it is you get what you pay for sort of things. So it's, I mean, but anyway, I mean, people might have other opinions about that, but
Yeah,
yeah.
no, it's good. But there are a couple of ways that you can save on those, but just make sure you're budgeting for them because that's really helpful.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
So lots more projects really in terms of got a load of more bespoke pieces that I'm designing at the moment. I'm doing a Savorite garnet eternity ring, but it's not really an
Oh.
eternity ring. It's basically one that kind of slots in and over the engagement ring. It was very complicated to design initially. It took me about 4 weeks just to get the geometry figured out. So I was quite chuffed I managed that, because I think a lot of people, well, when I spoke to other jewelers and they were like, yeah, just forget it, give up. I'm like, no.
No, yeah, I love it.
So yeah, the client wanted emeralds, and I sort of, with the design, I designed something which had emeralds, but they wanted bigger stones. And I said, well, if you want bigger stones, we're better off going for different shaped stones because of the sort of leafy design. So rather than going round, going sort of pear and marquise shaped, which is a bit of a nightmare with emeralds because they're quite brittle and they crack and all of that. And so I sort of said, would you consider sapphire garnets, which basically look like really good quality, expensive emeralds, the same colour. So I've got that, and I'm doing some matching earrings.
Nice.
An opal and diamond white gold bracelet. What else am I doing? I've got a number of different repairs. I'm doing various sort of heirloom redesigns, kind of looking at my desk, but everything's in the safe. So I'm very visual when it comes to reminding myself what I'm doing. I've got some wedding jewelry. I've got a ruby and diamond ring I'm working on, very sort of textured. But my new collection actually, sort of with birthstone jewelry, is some set stones and some beads, but I'm doing it sort of customizable, so for example, you can put a bead on what's essentially like a little bar that's got a screw, and you're the first person I'm telling about this about, so so if you say you've got a kid that's born in January, you can put a garnet on there, and garnets come in all different colours. People kind of think garnet red, but they come in all different colours basically, apart from blue. You don't get blue garnets. But then also, if you then have another child, then you can put one, like say a September baby, then you can put a sapphire on there, which they also come in.
Nice, yeah.
Unless it's, apart from red, then it's classed as a ruby, but it's the same stone. So yeah, like basically just really customizable and meaningful, that kind of thing.
Nice.
I've had a number of people that sort of like ashes jewelry as well, so I'm designing a little sort of like a bottle so that people can put ashes in there with a screw top. So previously I've done ashes sort of mixed with a bit of a resin, which works nicely as well, but some people don't really want to hand their ashes over to work with, so the bottle idea works nicely.
I've got a lady in who's in my membership, a lady called Kelly, and she does ashes jewelry, but she makes it with glass.
Yeah, I've heard of that as well, fused glass. I've not personally done it, but
I'll hook you up with her because it might be useful you guys having a chat.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And it's also useful knowing other people that do that, so that if someone does want it, then yeah,
you know someone that you can collaborate with. I'm all about the collaboration.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, I've got like a whole little pouch of rings that are my mother-in-law's, that she left me, and I don't like any of them. I know I'm never going to wear them, and I'm thinking like maybe I could maybe melt them down or something and make something for my husband for his birthday, like
for sure. I mean, to be honest, and I'd say this to anyone who tells me what you've just told me, is send me a picture initially, then I can just see what there is, and also say if it's something for your husband. I mean, for men, then obviously I think quite differently to designing women's jewelry. So for example, it could be a signet ring that's not a signet ring, so it kind of shaped like a signet,
or like
shaped like a signet ring but modern. Those sorts of things. Or I mean, it doesn't have to be a ring necessarily, but yeah, there's so many options, and often it's just getting past the blank canvas, which is the step that I can always help people with. I've always got so many ideas. I mean, maybe that is a symptom that I have of ADHD, whether I have it or not, is ideas are not a problem. I have tons of them.
Love it. Oh, it's been so nice to have you on. Ruth, where can people find you?
So if people search Ruth Mary Jewellery on either Google, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, then generally they'll find me. Or search my name, Ruth Chipperfield, or Ruth Mary Chipperfield. Mary's my middle name. That's the easiest way. My website is ruthmary.com, so that links to everything as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I really
You're so
enjoyed this. And
welcome.
actually, it's reminded me that because often I find sort of I make bad decisions with budgeting and money, and this has really sort of reminded me of the times I've made good decisions as well. So thank you
It
too.
sounds like you're actually really savvy. So, well, I'm
Deep
impressed. I'm
down.
impressed. Yeah, exactly. And we all make bad decisions from time to time. Doesn't mean we're bad with money. It just means that we've made a bad decision. So it's a good way of looking at it. For anybody who's listening, if you're listening on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Also share it with your friends. Leave us a review if you can. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Maddy Alexander-Grout. You can find me on LinkedIn. Also Mad About Money Official on TikTok. Forgot the name of the platform then. Don't know why, because it's where I hang out the most and what I teach people. Weird. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on, Ruth, and we will see you next time.